So, car camping, the step one. As I said before, I had done it with my boyfriend the one time, and although that was really fun, I wanted to do it more, and we couldn't get our schedules together to do it together, so I decided to do it alone, and I didn't really know how, and I didn't know what a person needs, and so I jumped right on the internet and tried to find it. And there wasn't a lot of information about camping because I think maybe it's so simple that people think they don't need to explain things, but I need all the things explained. So I went to the couple of friends that I have that I know camp, and I asked them where they love to go, and I figured out that I should probably go to Colorado Bend State Park first because it was really close by. And then I started thinking about all the stuff I would need to do a camping trip by myself, and I started buying stuff, and I spent so much money. I really tried to buy like cheap stuff, but going from zero to pro ain't cheap. I just kept purchasing things for car camping. It felt like endless, but finally it ended, and I had everything I needed. And so this will cover my trip to Colorado Bend State Park, my trip to Lost Maples Nature Area, both of which are in Texas, my trip to El Dorado Lake State Park in Kansas, my trip to Nerstrand State Park in Minnesota, I know I pronounced that wrong, and a little day hike that I did at Bass Lake Trail in Ely, Minnesota. Enjoy. All right, so I went to the Texas Parks Department online and reserved my spot at Colorado Bend State Park. That was the first thing I did. Staying at a state park is a lot like staying at an outdoor motel where everybody shares a big giant bathroom. Check to see if it's got a shower facility, so you bring all the stuff you need for that, and decide how close or far away you want to stay from like whatever the nature feature is, like the river versus the bathroom. Then I went on backcountry.com. They have a really great checklist for car camping. And make sure you bring great shoes for hiking if that's what you want to do. I went out and hiked the Gorman Falls Trail. It was like 4.5 miles out and back, so 9 miles total. The hike itself wasn't really amazing, but the result, Gorman Falls was really gorgeous. I also made it through a major thunderstorm, and you can see everything was bone dry. And I think my favorite part was cooking. I borrowed my friend Eric Rich's dual fuel Coleman stove and pantry that he has, and used all of it. That's his, cookware. And I turned around and bought a Coleman stove on eBay the next day. That's really it. It was that simple. Like, I drove out there, I pitched my tent, I went on a hike, and hung out at camp, and I loved it. And I came home and planned my next trip to Lost Maples. All right, here's my setup at Lost Maples. You can see my tent, and behind me, my neighbor's tent. There's my car. And now you can see my neighbor's tent blown over because they didn't stake it down when they went on their hike. So we all had to deal with their tent blown around all over the place all day. When you go to a state park, if you don't make it in time to check in at the office that's there at the park, don't worry about that. You can do sort of like a late check-in. And there's always a camp host there, maybe like in spot number 1 usually. So you can always go find them. They'll definitely come find you. From what I've seen, they walk around and make sure everybody's got the permit and everything's good. There was also a park manager at Lost Maples, and she was full of information about the weather and the trail, and she was really great. I knew that I wanted to do a section hike of the Superior Hiking Trail by the time I went on this trip. So this trip for me was a lot about hiking. Lost Maples has 3 different trails. It's got an east trail, which is about 5 miles. It's a loop. And then it's got a west trail, which is also around 5 miles, but the west trail also has a west trail loop, so that adds a couple of miles. So I think it's 7 miles all told. So I did both of those trails, and I actually ended up doing the east trail twice. I think I was out at Las Maples for like 6 or 7 nights. So I spent a lot of time at camp also hanging out and writing and drawing and cooking. I just had so much fun there. I originally was only going to be there for 4 nights, and I loved it so much I extended my trip. And I credit Lost Maples for sort of giving me the bug to go backpacking, because I kept hiking past their primitive campsites, which were amazing. Well, every part of my experience at El Dorado was unpleasant. I couldn't find my camping spot. The guy at the gate didn't know where it was. My camping spot was next to a really unsafe looking dude and his girlfriend. I just didn't like the looks of it, so I just drove off and found a secluded spot away from all the people that I hadn't reserved, and just banked on nobody showing up, which I'm glad they didn't. I woke up with a Dollar General bag blown onto my tent, so I used that and the other 2 bags I found to like pick up litter at the site across the way, which was on the water. So sad. You know, and there is real beauty out there. That lake is gorgeous, and it just seems like everybody is really only out there to party, you know? Like there's a huge dumpster overflowing with no lids. Ironic, found trash. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. So the second night of my trip from Austin to Minnesota, I spent at Nerstrand-Big Woods State Park in Minnesota. And I loved it. I immediately pitched my tent and then hopped on a trail. They have a really nice trail system there to go to Hidden Falls, which ended up being about 10 minutes from my campsite. So I went ahead and hopped on another trail and ended up doing another 1.5 miles, I guess, in my flip-flops. And it ended up being kind of muddy and difficult, but I was really happy I did it. And I got back to my tent and my car in time to cook up a dinner and dive into my tent, you know, before nightfall. I can't say enough about the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and how just beautifully they take care of their trails and the facilities, and how friendly everybody that works for the DNR is, and really just how completely diametrically opposed to the Kansas State Park system this experience was. In every single way. I loved it.
Alright, I made it to Hidden Falls. Yeah. Feeling pretty lucky about the park that I picked to stay in tonight. I did not feel that lucky last night. Alright, I'm going to enjoy it. So this is the Bass Lake Trail. I'm maybe 10 minutes into it. It's already just kind of stunning. I feel like this is the first time I've ever really been in a legit forest. This is the Superior National Forest, and I'm just outside of Ely, Minnesota. And I just started this trail. I feel like I'm going to record the whole thing. But here I go. I made a rookie mistake, I guess, and I didn't keep the lake on the correct side of me. Just had my head down watching my feet, and I missed the turnoff to do the full loop. I think it's at least a mile back, but I'm gonna do it and just do, you know, an 8 or 10 mile hike today. Because I just want to see where I screwed up. Go, Lana! Well, turns out I just started out wrong, so I'm going to do a different route that is not going to be as long because I've already walked like 2.3 miles to a really beautiful waterfall, which I'm going to see again in a little bit on this loop. So I just attempted to do this Bass Lake hiking trail, and I missed the turnoff like right at the very beginning of the trail. So this is a little bit of a fail, and it makes me a little nervous about going out on the Superior hiking trail by myself. I mean, I got off trail at least 4 times on this dinky, easy trail. So you know, I guess I'm keeping my head down and watching where my feet are going, and I'm missing important signs. I don't know. We'll see.